instrument of this developer's power, an instrument to subjugate the users. And then the developer can command them, exploit them, and abuse them. So society has a choice to make on democracy. On the other, we have the dictatorship of the developer. Society must choose free software and reject proprietary software. The ultimate goal of the free software movement is the liberation of cyberspace and all of its inhabitants. All of you deserve freedom. I hope you will all join me in the free world. I started the free software movement in 1983. During the 1970s, I was part of a free software community. I worked in a lab at MIT where we shared software. And I learned that that was a good way of life. And then the community died under commercial pressure. And it became impossible to use a computer and have freedom. I wanted to change that. I wanted to be able to use computers in freedom. So what could I do? Very few people agreed with me. So I didn't think we would get very far starting an ordinary political movement where we would protest with signs and send letters. And besides, I had no experience doing that kind of thing. I was an operating system developer. But being an operating system developer, that suggested another way I could achieve the same result. All I had to do was write another operating system. You see, the reason it was impossible in 1983 to use a computer in freedom was that the computer won't do anything without an operating system, and all the operating systems for modern computers were proprietary. So if I wrote another operating system, then I, being the author, could legally make it free software, and then everybody would be able to run a computer in freedom using my system. In other words, I would be able to eliminate this injustice of proprietary software, or at least give people a place to escape from it to, through technical work in my own field. So I was aware of an injustice that most people did not recognize as an injustice. I had the skills necessary to try to eliminate the injustice, and it looked like nobody was going to do it if not me. That meant I had been elected by circumstances to do this work. It was my duty. It's as if you see somebody drowning, and you know how to swim, and there's no one else around, and it's not Bush. Then you have a moral duty to save that person. But perhaps the statement I've made is too strong. Perhaps some executives of BP should be, perhaps we could identify some about whom I should not make the claim that you have a duty to save them. And whether to include President Obama is not clear. He continues most of the kinds of torture that Bush started, and protects the torturers, and continues wars of occupation, and continues disappearances of people. They're kidnapped and taken to secret prisons, perhaps in Afghanistan, and the US government doesn't even admit that they are prisoners. So, but fortunately, I don't need to resolve these questions because I don't know how to swim. But in the case that really occurred, the work to be done was not swimming, it was writing lots of software. and that I knew how to do. So I decided to write a free software operating system or die trying. Of old age, that is. Because at the time, the free software movement which I was founding had no active enemies. When I told people about it, a lot of them thought it was silly, but they didn't bother trying to stop the work. They were sure that the job of making a complete free operating system was so big that we would never be able to do it. And I too recognized it was a very big job. I didn't know if we would be able to finish a complete free operating system, but at the same time I realized that failure was not an option. We had to develop one. Because without a free operating system, we would never have freedom if we were computer users. So, I decided to develop a complete free operating system. I decided to recruit other people to join in and help to finish it sooner. I decided to follow the design of Unix because Unix was a portable operating system. It could run on various different kinds of computers from different manufacturers. I also wanted to make a system that would be portable, and following the design of Unix seemed like the most reliable way to achieve that goal. And then I decided to implement the same commands that Unix had, in other words, to make it upward compatible, so that all the people who already knew how to use Unix could switch to my system and they wouldn't have to learn very much. They could just start using it. And then I gave it the name GNU, which is a joke. Because part of the spirit of that community which died was, since we were programming for the fascination of programming. It's true, some of us were employees and the rest were mostly students, but that was all secondary. The fascination of programming was why we were there. And to make it even more fun, we used to give our programs funny names. Because when you imagine the users laughing at the name, that gives you the motivation to finish the program so it will have users to laugh. The name GNU is a joke because it's a recursive acronym. It stands for GNU's Not Unix. GNU, GNU's Not Unix. And of course, programmers love humor based on recursion. But the reason I called it GNU and not ANU or SNU or GNU is that GNU is a word. In fact, it's just about the funniest word in the English language because it's used in lots of jokes. You see, according to the dictionary, the G is silent and it's pronounced new. So anytime you want to write the word new, you can spell it G-N-U and you have a joke. Perhaps not a very good joke, but there are lots of them. So as soon as you see the word GNU, you're primed to laugh already. Given the opportunity to use this as the name of a programming project, I couldn't resist. But when it's the name of our operating system, please do not follow the dictionary. Because if you say the new system, you'll get people confused. You see, we've been working on it for 26 years now, and using it for 18 years, it's not new anymore. But it still is GNU. So please pronounce it GNU. Avoid the pronunciation, the confusing pronunciation, new. And there's another erroneous pronunciation you should avoid, which sounds like Linux. But how did such a gross error ever get started? What happened was